Hello, everyone. Sorry about the delay at the beginning there, but well, we're back finally. This is the countdown episode, another one of those. And weren't too sure if Alex was going to be able to join us this time, but he was able to join us. Thank God.
I'm here.
Yes.
He's alive.
Yes. So
You're alive.
Yes, he is. And this time, we're doing another countdown episode. It's the countdown of those shows that are no longer with us, that finished their runs. They may be in syndication or whatever, but they've never left our hearts. And maybe some of these we wish they were continued on in some way, shape, or form. But, yeah, we love them, and we still watch them to this day. Yeah. Okay, so, let's just start off with some honorable mentions, guys. Certainly, Firefly should be mentioned. We try and keep it so there's no real crossover here, but we all sort of came to a consensus that Firefly should be on everyone's list, but it's definitely top of the list for most of us, I gather.
Yeah, Firefly. Yeah. When we did Terminator, the Terminator franchise, I think we all enjoyed Terminator: Sarah Connor Chronicles, and that's a show that didn't get a proper ending. So, wish that had come back on.
Yeah, those are both certainly really good shows. And to shift gears a little bit to animation, Spectacular Spider-Man is something that I know everyone loves that was canceled far too soon.
Yep.
I didn't see that, but yeah, I could.
It was so good.
It was
so good.
So good.
And of course, it didn't matter that it got 80-some episodes. I mean, the animated series, there should be 800 episodes of that show.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're the Batman, which was recently canceled.
Yes. Sorry to hear about that. Really, I was doing that discussion show with Blue Dragon 5, and unfortunately, it just didn't it got canned, and then now it's been officially cancelled, which is a shame because that was a really good show. It's weird that there's not an animated Batman show on the air.
There will be another one soon.
Yeah, possibly called Batman Unlimited, but that might just be a toy line.
I think so, but maybe they're spinning the show off from the toy line.
It's very possible. People ran overboard with that picture from the licensing expo.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
All right. Any more honorable mentions, guys?
Nope. I mean, I would say the rest of the DC animated universe as well. Give me more of all of that.
Yes.
A little bit off the beaten path that I didn't get to finish watching this whole series, but I want to mention it anyway, is Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, which is the latest Scooby-Doo show. And I don't like Scooby-Doo. I think Scooby-Doo is an extremely annoying show. But Mystery Incorporated is genius. And I love every second of it. And it's so sad that it's over.
Oh. Okay. Well, we're going to start things off. I'll let Alex go first. So
awesome, alphabetical order.
Yes. So I'll let you start with your number 5 on the list. We'll go from 5 to 1. All right.
Mine aren't particularly, organized in any kind of order. So they're not organized. I'm going to throw out Silver Surfer, the animated series. I'm a big Silver Surfer fan. What really got me into Silver Surfer was the animated series in the late 90s. It's so good. It has its own really unique style that really mimics the John Romita art from the olden days of Marvel. It looks so good. And it's one of those shows, too, that mixed 2D animation and 3D animation together, and somehow they managed to make it work. I think almost because they looked so different. on the show. Like in the Spider-Man show in the 90s, they tried to like blend them together and it didn't work. But with Silver Surfer show, they were like, yeah, these two things look completely different, so we'll like use them to create this bizarre juxtaposed kind of style and aesthetic for the show. It only got a single season. There are some scripts online that you can read for like most of what would have been the second season, and has a bit of a cliffhanger, I guess. So I just would have loved to have at least seen a second season for that show, since most of the Marvel shows in the 90s, at like animated shows, at least went for 2 seasons. Many of them had like 1 season that was good and 1 season that was bad, but Silver Surfer should have got 2, because it seems like season 2 would have been consistent with the first one.
Never saw that show. Maybe it was never released out here because it was only like 1 season, and very rarely at that. I think at that time, if something lasted a season or less, it never made its way over our shores.
Could be.
That's disappointing because I saw that online, and it's a really, really good show.
Oh, okay.
And it's weird because it's not really a whole lot like the comics, like the really old Silver Surfer comics.
Oh, it's not?
But well, yeah, because in the old ones, like the actual Silver Surfer book, like the original run of that book, he's stuck on Earth after the Galactus trilogy.
Oh, okay.
But in the show, he flies all around space. It's the same type of storytelling that actually has themes in each episode, though. So it's got a lot going for it in terms of this quality of writing and just aesthetics.
That was one of those shows that I never saw on air, but when I got really into comic books, I looked them up online. I had no idea it existed. And it's strange because there was this phase in the early 2000s where they were just rerunning old Marvel shows every day, but Silver Surfer wasn't one of them.
Well, and yeah, that's the weird thing is, like, it was possibly one of the best. Like, I don't know, like, I think if you're actually going to be objective about the quality of it and strip away the nostalgia that people have for the 90s X-Men and Spider-Man shows, Silver Surfer was the best of the pack.
I'd agree.
Yeah. I just thought of another honorable mention. Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes. I wish that
taking things off my list.
Oh, that's a great show, but I guess we'll get to it.
Yeah, okay. Steve, you wanna go now?
My number 5 is Samurai Jack.
Without taking things off my list.
I'm sorry.
I'm kidding. Go ahead.
I can change it.
No, go for it.
Okay. Samurai Jack, Alex and I were talking about this a few weeks ago, maybe a few days ago, actually, I don't even remember. But how it's kind of the perfect premise to tell any story you want, just completely complete freedom of creation and ideas and stuff. It's such a simple concept about a guy being trapped in the future trying to find his way home. And the future is so bizarre that you could literally add anything you want into it. It's one of those shows that everyone keeps begging for a proper ending, and I don't think it needs one. I think that it was canceled, and that's a tragedy. But if you just had like 6 seasons of doing the same thing every episode, it probably wouldn't have gotten old. It's got a beautiful animation style.
We all know what the ending is, though. Like, he defeats Aku and sets everything right.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you don't need it. And everyone's always pressuring the studio for like a film that has that, but I don't think we need it.
It almost works better if it is open-ended, and because with that concept, you can tell an infinite amount of stories. So.
And there's a great episode where it ends with Jack about to defeat Aku and get a time portal, and that's never referenced in another episode.
So
just to show that doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Well, just to throw it out there, if they really wanted to do an ending to it, why not do a whatever happened to the Cape Crusader type thing, and just have multiple different forms of the ending of how he beats the...
That could be interesting.
Oh, yeah, that'd be great.
That's a really good idea, actually.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, we could totally do that.
Or or the way they opened up Sherlock this past season with how he managed to get away from...
Yeah.
Moriarty.
Well, I think that idea would work really well with the nature of Samurai Jack and its sort of like embodied theory of storytelling.
And just paper storytelling aside, the art style for Samurai Jack and the way it's animated without lines is extremely interesting. You don't get a lot of pen and paper art anymore, but Samurai Jack does it in such a strange way where everything blends together just right. And no matter how bizarre the things you are looking at are, or no matter how much those colors don't mix, the art's able to make a mix. Mm-hmm. And just for that, it's worth watching, even on mute. And some of the best episodes are ones with very limited dialogue, and it's just looking at how beautiful the screen is.
Yeah, that's a show that, like, I can't put on, like, just in the background. It's something that I have to sit down and watch.
It's a show that anyone can watch. Like, I remember being a kid, and my mom, dad, sister, and me would just sit down every night and watch the new episode when it aired.
Nice.
Yeah, it's almost perfect all around. I don't think there's a single bad episode in that bunch.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, I guess it's my turn now. This one is going to be weird because it was made long before I was born. I think long before any of us were born. Well, if it's before I was born, so I'm the oldest guy in this place. So, yeah. I picked Thunderbirds, the original series that was made. Growing up, we'd go to the local video rental place. The videos kids was these things before that came out before DVDs, and they would have a whole bunch of the Thunderbirds videotapes there, and every now and again I'd get a whole bunch of them to watch, and it's been a while since I've watched a whole bunch of Thunderbirds, but usually it's been on lately in syndication. And honestly, I can't find a bad episode. It's a nice blend of spy and futuristic stuff. It was everything seemed bigger and really cool. Of course, they cheated with scale all of the time, but it was a really good show. If you can get past the fact that it's puppets on the screen.
Puppets are awesome. If you have a problem with puppets, I got a problem with you.
Yeah, but it was very well done. Especially, you got to remember this was done in the mid-60s, around about the time. Of course, Star Trek was on, and that was pushing the envelope. This was also pushing the envelope of the technology at the time. So yeah, for those who think we need CGI for everything, go watch this show. And this was done in the 60s, and some great model work was done. But yeah, I think we need to take another look at the show and get a decent movie for it made. Apparently they're rebooting the series and going to be another CGI version of it soon, so that'll be good. Okay.
I don't have a whole lot of experience with that show, but I remember seeing it as a kid and being like, I need to see more of this, but I never was able to see more of it.
Yeah. It's on every now and then, like really early in the morning, but I've just never been able to sit down and see all of it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Awesome. Are we back at me?
Yeah, back to you.
Okay. I'm going to say my one, which was exposed from earlier, and that was Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes.
Okay.
I have kind of a saying about this show, and that's this show does right everything that the Marvel Cinematic Universe does right, but it also does right what everything the Marvel Cinematic Universe does wrong. This show is just like I like this show almost better than like the Marvel comics that it's based on. It's just it takes that's the nice thing about adapted media. A lot of times is they're able to take all the weirdness and kind of boil it down to its essence and create something that's a little bit tighter. And I feel like this show does that for kind of like I don't want to say modern Marvel because they reference a lot of old stories and stuff, but it's just I love this version of these characters. I've never been a big team guy. I've never been a big Avengers guy specifically, but this show made me kind of fall in love with them. It was so good. It's such a shame that it only lasted 2 seasons. They were at least long seasons. They had like 20-something episodes, but I just cannot get enough of the show. I just want more and more and more.
It's got it must have my favorite version of the Hulk on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not a big Hulk fan. I liked what they did with the Hulk on that show. That was my introduction to Black Panther. And I thought he was really cool.
Mm-hmm.
We do need a Black Panther movie.
Big time.
I liked what they did with Captain America on that show. Because I'm becoming a bit of a Captain America guy.
Yeah, that show really did a lot to make me like his character.
I like what
why you and I just nationalistically have an inherent resistance to the character of Captain America.
Yeah. The only thing I really didn't like was Wasp had what looked like some really cool powers, but it never seemed to affect any of the villains really at all. And she was the only woman on the team. Like Black Widow wasn't really on the team at all.
Well, they brought in Carol Danvers at some
Which was
point,
nice.
but yeah, she wasn't there all the time.
Yeah. Wasp was pretty cool though. I liked Wasp.
They made Hank Pym likable.
Yeah,
I fucking love Hank Pym in this show, and he's now my favorite Avenger because of this show. And yeah, and he has all of the negative personality traits that Hank Pym from the comics has, minus the stuff that's not appropriate for kids, the wife beating and whatnot. But he's still really sympathetic in the show.
Yeah, it's pretty surprising. It's weird because you guys said you really like Captain America in the show, and I didn't at first. I really resisted him for a little while, but as the story went forward, like particularly season 2, he got really good.
I just love how the show took the time to build the team and did it the right way. It wasn't rushed at all. Like, it took half a season to actually get them to team up. And they have, like, the beginning of the show is like, the first episode is an Iron Man episode that introduces that. And we have, like, an episode that's just about the Hulk and one about Captain America in World War II. And it's like we get kind of like our solo movies as the first, episodes of the show. And eventually they kind of build them together gradually. And it feels organic. And that goes a really long way.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's very nicely paced because there's so much story going on in it. Where like a lot of background machinations and stuff, and it's able to juggle it really well.
Mm-hmm. Just love this show. Give me more.
Yeah, I definitely want to get it all on DVD at some point because it was really that good. It just didn't make my list.
So my number 4, I guess, is Veronica Mars, which we've talked about before.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Which I've now seen all of, so.
Yeah, that's a great show. It kind of has a little bit of a resurgence now with the film and the new book series. But this show, just the 3 seasons of it, are really, really good. And it's interesting that they're able to make such strange teen drama so fascinating and intricate and very nuanced in places. Because it does some of the overdramatic stuff. But the situation and the motivations behind it make it totally believable that people would react in this way. And they do that thing of where teenagers think everything's the end of the world, and they literally make it so that it will be the end of the world if something like this doesn't work.
Yeah, it's like taking the teenage mindset of everything is a life and death situation, and they make it literally a life and death situation. It's like that just kind of always works. Teenage dramas and putting in genre elements always works.
Yeah, and It's got really good acting, because you don't see a lot of good teenage actors, but everyone in that show is pretty well cast. I especially love Logan.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. Logan. Logan is the man in that show. I love like he's got some of the best lines in the show.
He's got some of the best lines in like any show ever.
Yeah.
It's weird because he is a bit of a jerk, but he's such a likable jerk.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we see where he's coming from because of his family life.
Yeah. There's an episode that I was just talking about the other day, and it's very much like a summarization of what the show is all about. Where Logan's hosting those bum fights, and he tries to get like a homeless veteran to join in, but he doesn't. And when he comes back and meets the guy again, he says, "Did you find someone else to be who's a bitch to money?" And it's his dad. And that's exactly what the show is about, because there's a divide between the rich and the poor in the whole world, but it's the kids that kind of suffer from it, and they're not as different as they think they are.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting. It does teen drama so well.
Well, there is a lot of class warfare in that show.
There is. And the kids are surprisingly mature about it, you know? Like, there's that episode, like, I could just name episodes all day, but there's the one with him and Eli, and if Eli gets blamed for something, he's expelled, but if Logan gets blamed for it, then they both just get a small punishment.
Mm-hmm.
And they exploit that weakness, and it's really interesting.
Yeah. I still want to marry Mac on that show.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, nothing wrong with that. All right. I guess that brings it back to me. Well, another show that's probably before a lot of you guys were born, but well, at least one of you. MacGyver. I love the show. I love how he doesn't usually, well, except for a small moment in the pilot, use a gun to get out of situations. To use his mind. And a lot of it is kind of ridiculous at some points, as Mythbusters proved. But
they always prove that.
Yeah, I think like a lot of the reactions and stuff are probably either bigger than what they make it out to be in the smaller in the smaller in real life than what it would be in the show or whatever. Things would take longer or something, but you know, he has one of the greatest antagonists, the reoccurring one. But he doesn't show up until the second season. Murdoch, played by Michael Delmar, it's something like weird. He's really great. I think he always plays a great villain, but unfortunately more recently he hasn't been able to play one. Really cool actor. Richard Dean Anderson is awesome in the show. Terry Hatcher got her start on that show. You'd be surprised at the actors that were actually on MacGyver early on. But yeah, that's my number 4. You guys seen any of that show?
Not really, weirdly enough. And I mean, like, MacGyver's entered into the popular lexicon, like as he's a verb now, like you MacGyver or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I haven't really been exposed to the show.
Really?
I used to watch that and Knight Rider back and forth a lot. And it got to the point where I don't know what episode is from MacGyver and which one's from Knight Rider.
Yeah, all my favorite episodes are the ones with Murdoch in them, because that is the guy that challenges him to use his mind the most. Like, there's this great episode where MacGyver loses his memory, and at this point they've actually explained the reason why he doesn't like guns, because they spend an entire episode on that, which is really good. It's a really good episode.
It's because he's Batman.
No, but he kind of is because both his parents died, but they weren't shot. They died in a car accident. But
Tony Stark.
So anyway, he's lost his memory, but he gets into a situation where he's holding a gun and he's pointing it at Murdoch, but he's got to figure out a way to get through this trap that Murdoch's set up, and he's something about it just doesn't feel right to him, and he ends up using like the gunpowder and all that to get through the trap that he set up, and and I won't give away what happens after that, but that's all. The Murdoch ones are really interesting. Like there's one where he actually has to team up with Murdoch to help save Murdoch's sister, I think it is. It's really interesting. And we have evil Niles in that. The Niles from the Nanny. It's really interesting. So, but yeah, I haven't got anything else to say. So,
okay, my number 3 is yet another animated show, and that show is called Green Lantern: The Animated Series.
Me saying that.
I've always liked the concept of Green Lantern, and never got too much into the comics. I've been hesitant to get into the Jeff Johns run because I'm just not a big Jeff Johns fan. But this show, I mean, you get Bruce Timm working on it, you get Giancarlo Volpe doing it, it's in CGI, so it fits with Green Lantern. Like, this show made me actually like CGI animation, which I was always kind of like, on to some degree. And it's just such a good show. There's so much heart to it. And it only really lasted a season. I mean, I guess it was 2 separate arcs within that season, so it kind of feels like 2 seasons. But only 26 episodes, and that's not enough. Again, should have had 260 episodes.
I've been meaning to see that. What got me past CGI was Beware the Batman. I really hadn't liked CGI animation to that point. I've been meaning to check out Green Lantern the animated series because I've heard nothing but good things about it.
And I think Green Lantern the animated series does CGI animation better than Beware the Batman does, because everything feels like it's got a little bit of weight to it. And it's got more dimension and more detail, which is surprising.
I think you can get away with what they did in, I guess, Beware the Batman to some extent, more in Green Lantern, in that in Green Lantern they're in space, and the big problem with Beware the Batman was, like, the only cars that you ever see in the city are cars that need to be there for the plot. Other than that, it's a completely empty city.
Yeah, and it's weird because the producers of that show apparently built like real belts and real cars and stuff, and it just doesn't feel like any of that translated to the animation.
Yeah, like they made a big deal in the beginning about, and I guess we're kind of getting into Beware the Batman here, but just about how they built a Gotham City, and it's the same Gotham City you see every time because there's actually geography to it. And I think that's awesome, but I never got to really too much of that impression. Like, that never brought itself into the story anytime.
True.
But I guess circling back to Green Lantern, that show did darkness so well. Particularly the thing I always remember is one of the most earliest episodes with Razor, and he's being tortured with the last moments of his planet where his wife dies, and instead of talking, he says that he's at peace because no matter how painful it is, at least he gets to see his wife again. And it's one of the darkest things I've seen in animation ever.
Well, and that and the whole thing with Aya at the end of the second arc, too.
Yeah.
And just the heartbreaking stuff between those two characters. Oh, it does break my heart.
It's a really good series. I wish it had so much more, though, because I'm not a Green Lantern guy at all, and that show completely sucked me into its world. So I guess
future.
moving on to my turn. Another pseudo teen drama, Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Stop stealing stuff from my list. well, well, I guess if you're going to talk about Buffy, I can change mine to something else. But yeah,
You don't have to, but no, Buffy's just something I really love. Buffy's the kind of thing where I rewatch it constantly, and I don't know why I do it. Like, I get into a mood where I'm like, hey, I'm just gonna rewatch all of Buffy. And then, like 6 months later, I'm like, I haven't watched Buffy in a while. Let me just rewatch all of it.
yeah,
And yeah, go ahead.
I'm like that too sometimes with it because it's such a good show.
Yeah, it is. And it's not even like the arcs that get me. It's just like specific episodes that I remember and specific character moments and choices. Because who those people are at the first episode and who they are at the end it's so totally different, but so natural. And Whedon's just a master of it.
Yeah, I still like the first episode where Spike shows up because I just love that he just drives in his black car and smashes through the sign and it says home sweet home, and then there's another episode later where he does it and he's falling out of the car completely drunk.
Spike is just fantastic. There's that whole like half a season where he's just tied to a chair. The show gets so much right, and it has a lot of bad. I'm not even gonna make any bones about it. There are a good chunk of episodes that I think are really bad. Like season 5, I hate. Dawn is a character that is completely insufferable.
Yeah.
But like there's sorry, go ahead.
There is very few good Dawn episodes, if any. I'd have to watch the show again till that point to talk about that in any type of length. But I don't think it's the actress's fault in any way. I'd never want to. It's I think they wanted to put someone in jeopardy again, and because they couldn't be Willow, and they didn't really think her character all the way through. I think.
No, and that the character sort of showed up when the show was in a bit of a transition phase anyway, so it's understandable. But even like forgetting Dawn, even season 5 has great episodes, like with the one where Buffy's mom dies, or was Once More in Fielding in season 5 or season 6? I don't remember.
Season 6, because it's after Buffy dies.
Oh yeah, it's after she comes back from the dead. She has that whole song. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those classics. It's a show that you can study in college because there is a degree in Buffy studies, and it's totally warranted.
I'd love to talk more about Buffy at some point, but yeah. I know Alex hasn't seen any of Buffy yet. He's not really a big Whedonite.
I like Whedon. I'm just not in love, I guess.
That might change if you watch Buffy, but you know,
it could.
It's weird. That guy writes so much good, but strangely, there's not a lot of it because there's Firefly that got canceled, Angel got canceled, Buffy had 7 seasons, and some of that was really bad. He's got a couple movies.
Yeah, it's just season 6 is the one I have most trouble watching because it's so dark.
Oh, really? Because I love that one.
It's really dark. It's like God.
I love season 6 and I love season 3 of that show.
Yeah, maybe you and me, Steve, should find time to do some Buffy studies at some point because I'd really love to talk about that show more with you.
Okay, that'd be great because I do love me some Buffy.
Yeah. Okay. If we can move right along here, I've changed my number 3 because my number 3 was originally Buffy, but I decided to change it because I really wouldn't mind talking about this show as well, and that's Angel,
Oh,
Perfect
that's
segue.
Oh man, I love Angel.
I think though everyone can come to the agreement that season 4 is just horrible. It's not too bad to start with, but then it gets really bad.
It's got its moments, but those moments are very few and far between.
Yeah, the thing is, I think this also has the Dawn problem as well. They introduced Angel's son, and don't get me wrong, I love the way they introduce him, but they introduce him and like he's constantly doing some stuff that's clearly just there to cause drama, and it's really bad. It gets really bad at certain points. I don't like the way they initially deal with Cordelia.
No, not in relation to Connor.
Yeah.
It's weird because everyone's like, "Well, Connor's just as bad as Dawn." I don't completely agree because I think Connor was written well. It's everyone around him that wasn't, so he's forced to do things that we don't like him for.
Okay.
Like if you were Connor, I would totally believe you messing things up with Cordelia and things going sour and being stupid. But it's not his fault so much as it's Cordelia's bad writing fault.
Yeah. It's just that there's so many times where Angel's just like he's confused, and I'm like, really? Can we get past Connor just being confused? Because it's really weird doing that all the time. It is unfortunate though because I do like how he comes back briefly in one of the final episodes because it's like I think they had found the balance there for him. Because
Yeah.
I do like the actor. I've seen him in another movie that I actually did like him in. I won't mention that because it's it's got a reputation and but yeah, it was pretty I think it is a show that does take a while to get started though. Moving on, the guy, the Blockbuster Buster, recently did a review of it. Really doesn't seem to like Cordelia, and I do see his points, but I think the actress, I forget what her name is, but yeah, she's
Charisma Carpenter.
Yeah, Charisma Carpenter. Yeah, I knew it was both names that I would say. But yeah, she's really good, and I think like I think the Joss Whedon and the other creators of Angel, sort of brought her over to keep giving that character life. But
Cordelia's like Damian Wayne, where you have to know where she's going to appreciate why she's annoying at first.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because when you get to the end of the show, she is essentially one of the most important and influential and powerful characters in the series, but you'd only like her if you know that already.
Yeah, I never had a problem with her though. I always thought, I always thought she was there to sort of balance out the comic relief for the show, and to be mean sometimes, which was really sort of gave the show the feeling of it. But yeah. All right, I think we're done talking about Angel because I wouldn't mind talking about that too with you also, Steve. We'll find. We'll probably dedicate a whole show to that at some point. But
Hopefully.
Yeah. Back to you, Alex.
My number 2 was Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and that might sound weird to say given that we just got like another season on Netflix, but it was a truncated season. It was only half a season. And the way that season 5, I think it was, ended was really,
Wait,
really
wait
interesting.
1 second, Alex. 1 second, Alex. I'm in the middle of watching season 2.
I won't spoil it for you.
Yeah, no spoilers, please. No spoilers.
Okay. I'll just say where it left off, it left a couple things dangling. It actually left some things sort of dangling, but it would have been an okay place to end it, and then they gave us more, and like we're in less of a stable ending, I feel like, with this half a season. But there were some really interesting threads that were left a little bit dangling that I know they were planning to do things with. And I really feel like that would have brought the whole series to completion, like full circle, if they'd been able to kind of wrap those things up as well. So even just half a season more of that show, that's all I need to wrap it up.
Okay.
But it was an incredible show. It had the kind of crappy job of having to fit together two really crappy movies, but the best of the prequel era stuff is, Clone Wars.
Mm.
That's always what I wrestle with that show, is that I hate episode 2 and I hate episode 3, and both of them are so contrived to even cause the Clone Wars that I don't like anything set in them, and that's not the show's fault.
No, it's not. And if you're able to just look at it as, it is, like, as a Star Wars fan, like, you'll see Tarkin in the show at one point. Just aesthetically, you'll see things that call back to the original trilogy, and you'll just be like, oh, I'm getting nostalgia-y. But I think it almost works best, and the show might have actually been better if it had just been a generic space war show. Because it almost gets very science fiction-y at times with dealing with actual issues. And it explores some really, really cool things. And I loved the show, and I want to see it wrapped up properly.
Yeah. I'm making my way through season 2 now, because it was never on at a decent time for me on Cartoon Network out here. And I kept missing it. So, and I wanted to grab it all on DVD, but like, I was always waiting. I want like the complete season on DVD, and I want the stupid stuff kept getting in the way, so I couldn't get it all on DVD, unfortunately, for quite a while there. So, but thanks to QuickFlix, I'm making my way through it now. Unfortunately, though, they're not the greatest source for everything, because licensing rights is just terrible out here. But from what I've seen of season 2, which is only the very first few episodes, it's not too bad. It's just not as actiony as I wanted it to be, and
it gets more actiony. It gets better as it goes on. I'll just say that. Like, I didn't hate it in the beginning at all, but it definitely gets better as it goes on.
Yeah, but I'm interested to see, because I did see that Darth Maul comes back, and I'm interested to see how that's exactly done. Because
I'll just say it's good.
Yeah, so yeah, it's got me interested. It probably, like, if I'd probably watched it all, it might have been on my list as well. So, but I'm glad you brought it up, Alex. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well.
So my number 2 is Animaniacs. I'm not sure if you guys have seen that. It's one of those 90s Steven Spielberg shows.
Yeah.
And it's great.
Oh,
it's
yes,
absolutely great. That Freakazoid Pinky and the Brain do the internet meme humor before there was such a thing as internet meme humor.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
Hello, nurse.
It's still funny. It's on the Hub now, like really early in the mornings, and I still watch it, and it's fantastic. They talk about so many fun issues, like about network pandering and censorship and just the general lost in translation stuff that can happen with cartoons, and it's great. There aren't a lot of words for it. You just have to watch it. Is kind of the sense I'm getting with that show as I go through it again.
And all of those shows that you mentioned are so smart. And it's funny because we all enjoyed them as kids, but now as adults we can go back and rewatch them. And there's this whole other layer to it, where it's like it's funny because we get the references.
Yeah, like there would be things where the characters in the show will acknowledge the fact that they're in a show.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of times when they do that, it's not because it's a funny joke, but it's because they want to talk about like a really quick issue that comes up when you're making TV shows. And it's just so much fun thinking about it now that we know what production stuff is like.
Mm-hmm. It's so good.
Yeah, it's a fantastic show. Yeah. There isn't a lot of words for it. I can only speak in hyperbole about it because it's so fun.
Yeah, I haven't been able to watch it again since I was young, so I don't remember a lot of it. So, because that was around about the time I was still into cartoons. Unfortunately, though, around about the time Samurai Jack and a bunch of other stuff came out, I'd really fallen up with cartoons and was like, oh, they're just for kids and that. It was a really... So that was sort of around the time. I remember always wanting to see more Pinky and the Brain, though, because I loved Pinky and the Brain.
If you haven't done this already, do yourself a favor and just check out like all the Cartoon Network cartoons from the mid-90s to early 2000s, like Tiny Toon Adventures and Freakazoid, Pinky and the Brain, Animaniacs.
Hysteria. Nobody ever talks about Hysteria.
Hysteria. Just that whole gambit of Paul Dini, Warner Brothers, Steven Spielberg cartoons.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because they're all amazing.
Yes, they are. I never get any litter. I live in the woods.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to switch my number 1 and number 2 around because just the reasons for it. So my number 2 is Star Trek Deep Space Nine. But my thoughts on the way that show ended, there's a whole podcast that I did with Alex on that.
I'd almost forgotten about that. And that was the thing that we discussed was that show needed a season 8. Yes,
it did. Not that I think a little bit more could have been done with the Dominion War arc. I really think that
too rushed.
Yeah, it seemed like everything sort of came to a head all of a sudden, especially when it comes to the finale. But the rest of the show is really good. I do like how season 1 does end. It definitely felt like they were going into a more archy direction after they finally realized that episodic didn't work. So what do? The first thing they pop out is the first 3-parter in Star Trek history, and that was really well handled. Each episode felt very different from one another. So yeah, and they didn't make life easy. Now, the other thing about this show too is a lot of Trekkies don't foresee it as real Star Trek because it doesn't gel with Gene Roddenberry's original vision. But you got to remember, I've just recently watched the first season of the original series. There's an episode where Kirk talks about destroying a planet because he can't let this alien species that takes over and kills people to spread any further because it's already wiped out like 3 planets already. Mm-hmm. So he can't. So yeah, that's really good. And there's an episode, the most famous episode of Star Trek probably ever, The City on the Edge of Forever. He has to let a woman die because otherwise,
all of history will be screwed.
Screwed up, yeah.
So you can't complain about In the Pale Moonlight and then praise City on the Edge of Forever. I get what you're saying there.
Mm.
I think the whole Gene's vision thing is completely overblown because he got, especially by the TNG era, ridiculous. And that's why we had that show DS9 that was so dark, it was the necessary cynical counterpoint to TNG's naive optimism.
Yeah, because the thing about it is, it's one thing to present a solution and then go off with it, um, and then leave it all behind because you're not coming back. But it's
Mm-hmm.
one thing to have a solution and then try and put it into place, and it's not it. It sort of shows life is not easy because there's the whole thing about bringing the Bajorans into the Federation, and and I never thought that was a good idea. Especially after what they bring up in one episode there. I forget what it's called.
But Star Trek is really fundamentally, yes, it is optimistic, but it's about the human condition.
Yeah.
And DS9 explores some really interesting elements of the human condition that other Star Trek shows ignored.
Yes. I can't wait to talk with you about season 1 of the original series because that was much more enjoyable than I thought it was going to be.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely, the original series has made its way just behind the DS9. Only because I haven't seen it all yet. So, but yeah, that's the only reason why that's not on my list. But yeah, that's that's my talk about it. So if you want to hear more about talk on DS9, though, there is a link it's in my playlist, Magpie elsewhere. Check that out. If you're subscribed to Magpie's Nest Productions, you do check out that. You can check out all the other track discussions that I've had with Alex here.
Mm-hmm. Because we've done 3 now, which were all pretty awesome. DS9 Season 7, Voyager Season 1, and most recently, Next Generation Season 2.
Yeah, and probably down the road, first season of the original series.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But I'll pass it over to you, Alex, for your... I guess we're up to your number 1.
Yeah, last one. You gave me a good segue, because I'm going to actually, and this might be controversial, say Star Trek Enterprise. Because
Okay.
it got good with the last season. It started getting better, and you and I kind of talked about this a little bit when we did our TNG Season 2 discussion. That's TNG didn't really start getting good until a couple seasons in, too. And, I just think if we'd gotten more of Enterprise, it could have turned into a much better show. And, we would probably not... If it had gone like the full 7 seasons that all the other TNG era, or I guess post-TOS shows had gone, we would probably remember it a lot more fondly than we do. We would say, yeah, those early seasons suck, but things started to get better with season 3 and that whole Xindi arc, despite the fact that, continuity-wise, who are these people? Why are we seeing them in the past for the first time? Season 4 was better, and then it would have got better from there, probably. Same as, like, a lot of the other shows.
Well, the Xindi thing didn't really bother me because I figured, oh, well, they're one of those species that we may not have necessarily seen too much of. They're trying to create add to the mythos of Star Trek.
It doesn't bother me as much as it does some people, but that's always a big criticism.
Yeah, but season 4 has a bunch of interconnecting, the arcs. Like there's
like mini arcs, like 2-3 episodes.
Yeah, and they're all pretty good. Unfortunately, I do not like how everything ended because they handed the reins back for that episode to Brandon Braga.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
that's the one thing too, is like the finale of that show is reviled by fans, so it would have been good to have seen more. Because the thing about the finale too is, like, time-wise, it skips ahead like 10 years, so
yeah, it doesn't.
You could have still gone forward, yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, so it might be a controversial pick, but I would have loved to have seen more Enterprise and seen just the show get better and get to see more TOS-y stuff.
For a
Me
second
too.
there, I thought you were gonna pick Star Trek the animated series since your list has been animated so far.
Yeah, that might be good too, because some of those, I don't know, I would actually put that show in and say it's somewhat comparable in quality to TOS. And I get the shorter episodes and it was more kid friendly, but there's some genuinely good episodes that are no more ludicrous than some of the stuff that they did in the original series. That
Yeah.
I think that show should at the very least, if we don't get more of it, like be made in continuity. Because I don't think it does screw some stuff up, but it doesn't screw stuff up more than Enterprise.
Oh. Okay. Steve?
Okay, so my number one is something we already talked about. It's Angel.
Okay.
No matter what list we do, if it's TV shows, my favorite TV show of all time will always be Angel. It's so good. It's a supernatural noir. It's a family drama. It's interesting because the season where Buffy turns to college is the season Angel turns to the outside world, and it's a good parallel because not everyone goes to college. And you're dealing with all of those themes of, well, once you're out in the world, it's harder to meet people, and what loneliness can do to you, and how you have to live in the world, even if you don't believe in anything and stuff like that. It's extremely mature, and I love almost everything about that show. Season 4 is bad. Yes, it's terrible. But season 1, 2, 3, and 5 are some of the best seasons of television I've ever seen.
Well, I want to say, though, just because I didn't get to mention this when I mentioned Angel, moving out on your own the first time, Room with a View, that episode,
Yeah.
that episode is so right, because that first night when you're out on your own, there's no one else there, it can be kind of scary. And after living on my own for the first time, that episode just felt so right with everything I was feeling that first night I was out on my own. So I could really relate to Cordelia in that situation.
And
That's
Lonely Hearts, like right before that, where you're no longer in school anymore, and you don't know how to make friends because you don't know what real people are like, and you just kind of seclude into yourself, and how that's not necessarily helpful for you. And no matter how much you want to meet people, it's just a different animal when you're in the real world.
yeah. It's really a really good show, and like I said before, it's gonna. I really think if we ever get a chance, we gotta find a time to talk about that show, you and me, Steve, because that's gonna be really interesting. Delving into
Go ahead.
delving into each episode, because that'll be really interesting.
Yeah, we could totally do that. And just before we end it off, Angel's Epiphany in season 2, in the aptly titled Epiphany, his philosophy of if nothing we do matters, then all that matters is what we do because that's all there is something that I love, and I've quoted it more times than I can count.
Not interested. Goodbye.
Telemarketers.
Yes, telemarketers, people, offering me investment opportunities. Sorry, I haven't got money to do that.
Invest in season 6 of Angel.
Yeah, invest in season 6 of Angel. Sorry about that, guys. I'm going to leave that in because it's just, I can't bother removing it.
I'm going to leave that in because I'm lazy.
Sorry, what were you saying?
Shit, what was I saying? Oh, I was just saying about Angel's Epiphany, how much I love that. And before we get off too quickly, I want to say the last episode of that show is my favorite episode of the series because it's the perfect ending. And I don't think any show I've seen has like had a perfect ending, but I think Angel has. It's a cliffhanger, and I still think it's more finite than Buffy, which has an actual ending.
I think All Good Things is a much better ending. Though.
I guess we can always debate that. What I love about Angels Not Fade Away is that the whole moral of the story is that no matter what happens in heaven, hell, whatever you believe, God, hell, atheist, whatever, all that matters is what you do. And at the end of the day, no matter what happens in Angel's life, he's always going to fight the bad guys. And it's really apt that the last thing he says is that he wants to fight the dragon, because that's the kind of guy he is. And no matter how many more seasons of that show you make, and the comic book proved it, no matter how much more you write with Angel, that's what it's always going to boil down to.
Yeah, I've been thinking about picking up that comic for a while. I'm gonna definitely pick it up in trade. Same with Buffy. I want to pick that up in trade as well.
I haven't read the Buffy comic, but like Angel After the Fall, it's okay. It's not great. It's kind of it's exaggerated too much, I think.
Okay. All right, so I guess that leaves it with me. This show I think could definitely continue on. It ran 7 seasons. It ended in an appropriate spot, but I still think we could have continued on with it, and that's The West Wing. Weird. The West Wing is a great show. It definitely hits all the spots that I want to. It presents a topic, and they talk about it from just about every angle. What are the good points of it? What are the bad points of it? There's a great episode about the death penalty. That's really handled quite well. It's one of my favorite episodes because it has one of my favorite stories, which is this reverend tells the president he's like the man by the river. The guy by the river that he gets told on a radio announcement that the town's going to flood. He says, though I'm a Christian and I believe in God, God will save me. Eventually he ends up drowning, and he says, why? He asks for an audience with God, and he says, I'm God, I'm a Christian. And then God says to him, hey, I sent you a radio broadcast, a helicopter, a canoe, everything. You know, why are you doing here? This is a really good story. But yeah, there's that one. Is this whole I think this has one of the best last seasons of any show I've ever seen, because it's all about, most of it is about an election, how that works. For I think it's like 45. Nearly a full year. I think it's like not. I think they've condensed it to like 9 months, but really good show. And I think we could have had the West Wing, the Santos era, gone on. I don't know if the certain cast members would want to have continued on with it, but I think it could have definitely gone on. And those people might have wanted out, and that's the only reason why it was done over with. But I think it was a good show. Definitely, it is my number one pick, and it's my number one recommendation to anyone, because I don't think there is a bad episode. There is an episode I skip over because it's just it's one of those things that can't be told in a great way. It's about Alzheimer's. One of the main characters' fathers has Alzheimer's, and it's good. And that usually it's just one of those stories that once you've seen it done right, you don't need to see it again. My mother likes that episode, but I don't, because it's just I've seen it, and I it just makes me feel uncomfortable all the time, because it's something I'm probably going to have to deal with in the future, and it's not something I want to think about. Really. Yeah.
But
so
good art has that effect.
Yeah. Well, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying it's just one I had to skip over. But it's a good show. They do just about everything with every single character in that show. There is a couple of characters that sort of just get written out, and you don't find out where they go, where they've gone to. It's just that they're not there anymore. But yeah, it's pretty good. It's it's great. It's a great show. I recommend it.
I've heard this show compared to House of Cards a lot, but a lot less exaggerated as far as corruption goes.
Oh yeah, it's not really. It's very much optimistic view of the government.
So it's like The West Wing is TNG and House of Cards is DS9.
Yeah, probably. Mm. Oh, I haven't seen House of Cards, so I wouldn't make that necessarily that good. But
They're both political shows set in the United States that deal with the president. So
yeah, and they do present it like the Republicans in the best light they can possibly do it. It's just like
that would be not impossible today.
Well, there's even there was an article about bringing the show back and with a new form and having it still in the same continuity, but
that could be cool.
Different. It's just my favorite character, Bradley Whitfield's character, which is Josh Lyman. He's got to be the. I swear to God, this guy is in the show is probably the hardest working person in Washington because he never seems to look like he's had a decent night's sleep. He always seems to be working, and he's always fighting to get everything done that the president wants done, and it's really he really is my favorite character throughout the whole series, and there's more I'd want to talk about on the show, because there's going to be another topic we're going to talk about somewhere down the road, and I think this show also has the best cliffhanger ever and that's the season 1 cliffhanger, and basically what happens in that. Really quickly mention this because I'll probably mention again in another show we do. There's a threat on the life of the president's body man, Charlie. He's dating the president's daughter, Charlie's black, daughter's white, and some assassins shoot into a crowd of people. The president and all the people from the West Wing, and it just ends, panning back, fade to black, and all you hear this radio voice say, "Who's been hit? Who's been hit?" And that's the end of the season.
Wow. It's like the ultra dark version of Disney's My Date with the President's Daughter.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really the best. I think it's the best one. I think it tops Best of Both Worlds.
Oh. That's quite.
But anyway. Anyway, I think the finale is quite good. I just think the show sort of putters out at the end. It doesn't come to a grand conclusion. It's just sort of putters out. But that's it. That's it. I think. Anything else you guys want to say about this?
No, I don't think so.
No, nothing from me either.
Yeah. Okay, guys. This will come out in a couple of days, but Steve, you get to pick what's next, and I think next time we should do another topic video. So, have you got anything in mind yet?
Not off the top of my head just yet, but I'll definitely talk it over with you guys once we finish this up.
Okay. So yeah, we're gonna probably do another topic one next time, guys. So, and we're probably gonna be focusing more on movie reviews now than TV shows or anything like that. But as I've said, down the road, probably Steve and I will probably be doing some sort of Buffy videos down the line. But, and maybe some major ones, but, yeah, so, yeah, I guess that's it, guys, so, goodbye, sorry to putter this out, but yeah, goodbye.
You're like the West Wing.
Yeah, I know, I'm like the West Wing, I just putter out at the end. Meeting adjourned, gentlemen, we'll see you next time.